Hey, what's up guys? Threat Level Midnight here, and today I got a video that to some of you might be mundane, might be helpful to others, and basically it's just going to be how to unload, disassemble, and maintain an 870 shotgun. As some of you know, I dry fire this thing quite a bit, and I shoot it quite a bit, and then usually what I'll do is I'll set it next to my bedside. But lately I've had a couple of real rainy days that made it real humid, and I'm in a desert, so I'm not accustomed to humidity. And all of a sudden, if you can see here, just a tremendous amount of rust exactly where I'm going to be doing like combat loads and stuff like that, or where I'd pick this thing up. So this thing's real rusty, and so I just want to go through, just kind of scrub it out, do some regular, just kind of, preventative maintenance on it. And, when I'm leaning the barrel up against the wall for any amount of time, you start to see like dust and, just kind of sediment in there. So I'll scrub the barrel out too. Nothing major, but let's get into it. All right, so first things first, I'm just going to kind of show you guys how I have my 870 set up. The fore end is the Streamlight, the TL Racker, so it's basically the head of a TLR HL, and then you have a pressure pad on either side. And this is kind of a potato-shaped pump, so the pump is kind of, I don't want to say awkward shape, but I don't know, it's different because it has this little recess in it right here. But I think the buttons work just fine, and the light's plenty bright. And then wanted to carry extra shells, and then I put this thing on before all the little Velcro placards were trending. So it's just the Mesa Tactical saddle rail, and then a Vortex spark on it. I ended up taking this gun to a law enforcement 3-gun match, and I knew that the agency putting it on shot pretty much exclusively slugs. So I was like, hey, I need a red dot for whatever we're about to do. I put a little pad right here, a little cheek pad right here, and then a limb saver on the back, just because it is a pump gun. Just makes it a lot more pleasant to shoot. I also have a G&G, or a GG&G single point sling adapter. It was like a double-sided one. I ended up cutting this side off because under recoil, this little hook right here would just dig into my finger, and after shaving some skin off of my knuckle, I decided it was time for it to go. But we'll go ahead and just empty the shells out of the saddle real quick. And I'll show you guys how to unload the tube. So the shotgun hasn't been racked. You have what's called the action bar release lever right here. These are going to be your action bars that are attached to your pump. So I depress this button, and as I start to pump, you can see that the chamber is empty. However, the tube has a live round in it. So all I'm going to do is push the carrier up. So I have my lifter right here. I'm going to push my lifter up. Let's see if I can keep this on camera. So when I pump the gun with the lifter up, it ejects that first shell. And then from there, you have your shell catch that's on the inside. And all you're going to do is just depress this shell catch right here. And then one by one, you can empty your shotgun shells out. And that's going to be on your ejection port side. And now you can see that orange plastic follower. All right, so now that we got this thing unloaded, I can go ahead and bring the pump back forward. The first thing I need to do, and unfortunately this gun is not a complete toolless takedown like the Benelli M4 is, you have this barrel band right here, and that's going to hold your tube extension. So I need a flathead screwdriver, and I just need to pull this flathead out, and then I can take the barrel band off, which will allow me to get my tube extension off. And now that the screw is out, you can see that there's a channel that this screw runs through, so you have to pull it all the way out. You can't just loosen it up. Barrel band comes directly off, and that's going to be the extent of the tools that I use today to do my regular maintenance on this gun. So now, all I'm going to do is back my tube off. Now on the 870, the spring that pushes your follower is not captive, so you can see how that wanted to jump on me right there. And you can see how much longer it is than the barrel, so you kind of got to keep a hand on it. It's a lot easier to do if I'm not filming. So now I have my extension, and I can go ahead and pull my magazine tube spring out. And at the same time, my barrel can come off now that the now that the extension is off. And usually I'll go ahead and give this thing a tap, see if I can get the follower to come out. If not, sometimes you just got to push something down. But I do like to give it a scrub down in the magazine tube, just because you can get debris in there, and it's good just to run a cloth through it. So I'll go ahead and revisit the follower that's in the magazine tube. But just like when we were when we were unloading the shotgun, you go ahead and depress that shell catch right there, and now you go to the other side, and you can see on the other side it almost looks like a shell catch, but it's positioned on the opposite side. So you can go ahead and depress that, and that's going to release your action bars. It's going to release your slide and your bolt assembly, which includes your slide, your bolt, and then your locking block, which is right here. It's pinned into the gun, and then your pump just stays attached to the action bars with a nut that's on here, like a castle nut, almost like on an AR-15 buffer tube. This just has 2 notches though. So once I set that aside, that's as far as I'm going to go, because I have the saddle rail on. I have screws running through here, and I'm not going to unbolt it and shift my 0 on my red dot, which is not a big deal because it doesn't really get too fouled up in here. I haven't put that many rounds through it since I fired it last, so I'm not overly worried about it. But now I just tipped it up, and you can see the follower is actually pretty dirty in there, and it's definitely worth a scrub. So a lot of people's cleaning gear can be pretty elaborate, but mine's fairly basic. I have an Otis kit, like a universal Otis cleaning kit that I got, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, and the zipper doesn't work anymore. It's kind of tearing apart here, but it has everything in here that I need, and I kind of collected a bunch of bore snakes just for my quick cleaning. Makes life a lot easier just running a bore snake through a gun than it is to run patches and brushes through everything. Now, there is a place for patches and brushes, but if it's just like a home defense shotgun or a gun that you run on the range a little bit, I really don't see the need to be running solvent and pushing patches through like a shotgun barrel like this. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and just scrub the barrel out with a snake. So for those of you that don't use bore snakes, it's a pretty simple concept. I just keep mine wrapped up like this. You have like a weighted string right here, and it's just got a piece of brass on the end of it, and then you have like a soft material, and you have 2 sets of brushes on this particular snake, and then it pretty much mops your barrel out. Now, usually what I'll do is just put CLP on this portion of it, so it kind of gets a little layer of CLP on there, but now it's just so saturated with CLP that I don't even add anything else to it. So we just drop our weighted end through. And all I'm doing is just pulling the snake through. And it doesn't take much. Again, like, this gun wasn't filthy when I set it up last, but I just want to make sure that there's not any like residual like dust or debris inside the barrel. And if you fire shotguns, and they can be a little bit messy. You're shooting lead shot out of a gun that's wrapped in a plastic wad, so sometimes you get kind of plastic fouling on there, or a lot of lead fouling, but this thing's pretty clean. So I'll give it a wipe down. And again, all my cleaning rags, they're just kind of saturated in CLP from over the years of just using the same rags, so I can kind of give this thing a wipe down, and I know that it's going to do a little bit of preventative lubrication for me on the outside and prevent some rust in the future, which is what I did not do after I dry fired last time. So now we'll go to the actual action of the gun, and you can see a lot of rust over here. So I'll see what just wipes off, which is almost all of it, but it's still not coming off too well. So I'll just take a rag, get a little CLP on it, and just put a heavier coat on for right now. I'll let this stuff kind of do its thing. And I'll get a nylon brush. I wouldn't want to use a stainless steel brush on this, obviously, because you're going to tear up the bluing or the nitride or whatever finish you have on your gun. But I'm just going to go everywhere where I see some rust here, visible rust anyways, and just put a nice heavy coat on. On the underside, I see a little bit as well. But something to be said about the 870s. I like them a lot. When I lived in a more wet climate, I would have the same problem with like my Mossberg 500s as well, where they were just rust monsters, where they were always requiring a wipe down or just like a thick layer of oil on them just to keep them clean. But I ended up shooting a 3-gun match with my 870, and ended up beating out a bunch of guys that were using Benelli M4s, and I chose the 870 on purpose because of its simplicity. And I knew that a lot of guys, even though they had Benelli M4s, they weren't working with them enough to effectively clear a malfunction if they encountered it, or to do slug changeovers. And so I knew that the 870 would kind of be the right choice again in that particular match. And again, it was a law enforcement match, so a lot of these guys will go and buy their semi-auto shotguns, qual with them, and then kind of put them away. And I kind of knew that going in, so it was a good choice for me. Not that I would choose my 870 over my M4 per se, but in that particular instance, it was a good call. So again, all I'm doing, I'm not doing much. Like you see, I'm not like scrubbing anything down right now. All I'm doing is just kind of wiping it, and nothing's very dirty in this gun right now anyhow. But I will get a nylon bristled brush and I'm just going to kind of hit these areas that had that heavy rust on them. I just want to break that rust off. And then when I'm done with this thing, I'll wipe it down completely. But I just don't want this corrosion to stay on here. But it was an unusual bit of humidity and rain that we had, so usually it'd be pretty shocking for any of my guns to end up looking like this. But again, none of this stuff is rocket science here. You saw how easy it was to take the gun down. Like I said, I like toolless takedown guns, but just one flathead isn't really that big of a deal. I feel like I see a little bit of rust on my trigger right there, so I'm going to go ahead and hit that. So after we hit that with the brush, I'll go ahead and wipe this down and just see how it looks. And this side's looking good. I go ahead and flip it and hit the other side. I know side saddles aren't cool anymore, but I do like the Mesa saddle rail. I thought that was a good choice for this gun. Real solid mount for the optic. Gun shoots real tight groups with slugs out at 50 yards, so I'm real happy about that. And that's what ended up putting me in the lead for the last shotgun match I was at, is because this thing held a good 0 and shot tight groups, because it was the match was scored on slug accuracy at 50 yards, so on like a bullseye target. So that ended up working out in my favor, so that was pretty cool. But definitely recommend the saddle rail if you're still into side saddles and you're not too cool for them. I still think they get the job done. They do good work. But you can see now, just wiping it down, just that little bit, it looks good as new. So I'll go ahead and set the receiver aside, and then we'll just take a look at what else needs to be hit. Now, when I look at this, maybe you can't see it on camera, looks a little dingy. It looks like the last time I fired this thing, I didn't wipe this down, so it looks like there's kind of carbon buildup here. And I'll see if I can just wipe that off. And again, this isn't one of those components that needs major cleaning or anything. This is just kind of you wipe it off, and then get a little bit of oil on there just to protect it when you're going into storage. But yep, that did the trick right there. I don't know if you can see a difference, but there's just a little bit of carbon buildup right here, just because that protrudes like right underneath the barrel. And then action bars, I inspect those. Those ones are not like parkerized or nitrided. It looks like they're just kind of blued. So these ones kind of seem a little bit more prone to corrosion, but these ones look good right now. And it looks like purely the corrosion on this gun was from where I was touching it before I set it down, before the humidity came in. So if you don't touch these things, it's not gonna give it a reason to have the corrosion start. So that looks good. Nothing really to wipe down on the pump itself unless you drop the thing in the mud. And the lens of the light, unlike a pistol light, this is so far back you don't have to worry about that thing fouling up. And then same thing with the barrel band. Nothing to really clean on there. I just wipe it just to give it a little corrosion resistance. And then follower, Some of the plastic, just like in like your pistol mag followers, it's just never going to be perfect again. So you can wipe a lot of the fouling off, but some of it's just kind of, you know, you have like deep scratches or like microscopic scratches that just kind of fill with carbon, and you're not going to be able to wipe it out. But I'm satisfied with that. It's clean enough for me. The spring, again, nothing major with the spring. Just wipe it down. If you use like older buckshot, and you know, it's a lot of buckshot will have like filler. It'll have like plastic like pellets in it, just to fill the space between your buckshot pellets. Sometimes those can spill out if like your crimp on your shot shell isn't like sealed, and you can kind of see it here. There's almost like a like sandy material, and the shells can leak if they're not, the crimps aren't sealed, and that stuff can get inside your magazine tube and kind of cause problems. But I haven't really seen too much of that and haven't had that many problems with it. So I'm just going to push the lifter up, and I'm going to get a paper towel, and I'm just going to run a paper towel through here with a rod. All right, so I got a couple paper towels. Now, I'm not going to lubricate the inside of the magazine tube, one, because this plastic follower rides inside. And you can see it has grooves here to kind of combat debris that it encounters inside the tube. But also, if you leave it too moist in there, like the moisture is going to attract dust, carbon, you name it, that little sandy stuff that comes out of your shotgun shells. It can attract that stuff, and I really don't want it sticking in there. So I would prefer the magazine tube to be dry. That's just a matter of preference for me. But I've seen... in fact, in my Benelli, I've had some problems with the magazine tube getting really dirty and causing a problem with the feeding. All right, so I have a rod. I'll see if I can do this on camera here. But nothing to it. I just fold it over a paper towel until I can get a tight fit in here. I can probably do better than that. There we go. So, nothing major on it, but it's still worth giving a paper towel, throwing a paper towel down there every now and again. But yeah, so that was just kind of basic maintenance for me. I kind of hit all the things that needed to be hit. If this gun was more dirty, I mean, worst case scenario, I would just unbolt my saddle rail and pull the trigger out and the trigger group, and that's not a big deal to clean either. It doesn't get overly dirty in there, but you can always just wipe this down with your rag or shop towels or whatever. And you know, it ain't perfect, but that's okay. I keep it oiled a little bit. But now we can go ahead and get back to reassembly. So first things first, on the reassembly, we have our action bars and our pump, and then you have your slide assembly. So when you look at your bolt and your slide assembly, you have kind of a rounded tapered end to your bolt, and you have a rounded tapered end to your slide assembly. And this will just drop in, and you can see what this slide assembly does is it activates your locking block, and that's how your bolt locks into your barrel. There's a big recess inside the barrel. Let's see if I can get some good light in there. Right here, that block locks into, so this thing doesn't sling open and try to eject that shot shell out on you. So you can see how those two interface. So now, this might be a little bit tricky to show you on camera, but you can see these little notches on the slide assembly, and you have these little notches on your action bars. And all this does is just sit on top of it. So you're going to have a little flex on your action bar, so if you spread these open, this is just going to fall through. But all you're going to do is just slide your pump through your tube. And so now we're seated a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and push our shell catch, and it's going to let your action bars go a little bit more. And we're going to push on that other side, boom, and it drops in. And remember, when we disassemble this thing, our action bar release lever, we'll go ahead and just drop this back just a little bit until we get our barrel back on. Because if your bolt is all the way forward, it's going to activate your locking block. And if your locking block is activated, if you try to put this barrel on top of it, it's just going to get stuck. It's not going to be able to slide in all the way. So I'll just show you that right now. So right now the barrel hitting the locking block. So if I drop this back a little bit, boom, barrel just drops right into place. And you can see, you can tell when it's in place when you can see your threads right here. If it's sitting up like this, you know that you're not going to be able to thread your magazine cap or your tube extension on there. So you'll feel that kind of that happy place where it just comes to rest right here. So now we can get our follower and make sure you put it, you know, protrusion facing down, and it just drops right down. And then we can follow that with our magazine spring, and you get that thing down as far as you can. Let's see if I can do this on camera here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this extension, and it's going to cup most of the magazine spring, and I'm just going to try to work it down without letting the spring explode out of the thing. And now I have a couple of threads started. I can just finish threading my extension on. So now once it's tight, we're almost done. Now the last thing we have to do is just get the barrel band on. So all we're going to do is just find the larger end of it right here, because this side is a smaller hole and that has threads on it, and it's a little bit smaller. And just real quick, I'm going to show you the importance of having that barrel band. Like, you might not want it, but you see the flex in the magazine tube and the extension. Now you can tighten this thing back down too after you wrench this down, but there's still some play in it. So all we're going to do is just line up that flathead screw, and now this barrel band is set. Tighten your barrel band down, and that's it. So now you can just go ahead, engage your action bar release lever, go ahead and give it a function check, and your gun is reassembled. All right, guys, and there you have it. That's a basic unloading, disassembly, maintenance, and reassembly of an 870. If you guys found this helpful, let me know. I know this is kind of rudimentary stuff for a lot of you gun guys out there, but if there's any other guns you want to see disassembled, maintained, cleaned, anything like that, just give me a shout and I'll see what I can do for you. But thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe.